The reason why my friends keep losing is they keep following the most extreme members of their conference. People don't want the solutions that Marjorie Taylor Greene brings before the Congress. They don't want a deranged former president who has been indicted more times than he's been elected to be calling the shots here. They want leaders that have vision, not petulant children that have nothing to offer but division.
Let's just start with the notion that we're here passing the same bill over and over again. Simply not true. We're here for one reason and one reason only, and that's because last month, Biden and the far-left radical Democrats catered to their base and put an indefinite ban on LNG exports. Again, as I said in my opening, this is going to hurt American workers. This is going to hurt our allies and partners around the world. So if you support dirty Russian and Iranian oil and gas, then go ahead, vote against this bill. But know that your vote supports them. If you support American energy and the American worker, then vote for this bill.
Mr. Speaker, the gentleman from Pennsylvania just kind of regurgitated a whole bunch of statistics. I'm not going to rebut every single one of them. But you know, he went through a whole litany of things that are wrong with our country. Well, you know what? Here's a novel idea for Republicans. Rather than just complain, maybe actually try to find some solutions. You know, if all the things the gentleman says are problems that we need to deal with, here's a suggestion: get about the business of passing legislation in a divided Congress to fix them. You know, this is the least productive Congress, I think, in decades. In my lifetime, I don't know. It's you know, I think since the Great Depression. I mean, my friends have done nothing. They've done nothing. They come to the floor and they complain. This is not just a do-nothing Congress. This is a do-nothing Congress over and over and over and over again. I mean, we're doing reruns this week. We've dealt with this legislation. This is the fourth time we're dealing with it. And I predict that we'll probably deal with it a fifth and a sixth and a seventh and eighth time, you know, before the end of the year when hopefully your majority comes to an end. And I don't want to be lectured about jobs from somebody who supported Donald Trump, who when he was president had the worst job record since the Great Depression. And I don't want to be lectured about blue-collar workers. I come from an area in Massachusetts where we actually stand proudly with our unions, something that my Republican colleagues fight against every single day in this chamber. So please, and I was just giving some friendly advice to the gentleman based on the results of last night's election, which my Republican friends were predicting a victory. But I'm saying that the reason why you did not win last night is because people think that what you're doing is not the right thing. Your ideas are unpopular, and they're sick of the incompetence and the inaction. They're sick of the complaining and no solutions. You complain about the border, Democrats and Republicans work together in the Senate to come up with a bill. Maybe it's not everything you want, but it was negotiated by some pretty conservative right-wing Republicans. And rather than bringing it to the House floor so we can have a debate and a vote, the Republican speaker and the leadership says, no, it's not allowed to be considered on the House floor. And again, the gentleman talks about national security. I mean, I just, none of us can understand the game that Republicans are playing with Ukraine. I mean, how can you do this to the Ukrainian people? I mean, playing into the hands of Vladimir Putin. I mean, are Republicans cheering a Putin victory against Ukraine? If so, that's sick. I mean, the Senate passed this overwhelmingly in a bipartisan manner, and the Speaker said it's dead on arrival. We can't even consider it here. And I just want to also say, because I think it's important for the record, last night in the Rules Committee, Ms. Scanlon of Pennsylvania offered an amendment to the rule to make an order, amendment number 2 to H.R. 7176, offered by Representative Houlihan, which requires the Commission to deny applications with regards to covered foreign countries, including China, North Korea, Russia, and Iran, as well as foreign entities owned by, controlled by, or subject to the jurisdiction or direction of the government of those countries. You know what, Mr. Speaker? It was defeated, 4-9. Mr. Burgess, Mr. Reschenthaler, Ms. Fischbach, Mr. Massey, Mr. Norman, Mr. Roy, Ms. Houchin, Mr. Langworthy, Chairman Cole, all voted no. All voted against making that amendment in order, which would have made sure that none of these countries that I just mentioned would benefit in any way, shape, or form. So sometimes we come to the floor and we debate these issues, and I'm not quite sure, whether we're dealing in reality or an alternative universe. But the bottom line is, if the gentleman cared about the things he just said, why couldn't we make this amendment in order and have an up or down vote on it? Why was this such a radical idea? Why was this such a bad thing to do?
It's not a coincidence that under the Obama administration, you had an aggressive Russia moving into Crimea. And then you have 4 years where Russia does not invade any of their neighbors. Enter Joe Biden and the radical Democrats, and Vladimir Putin senses the weakness of Joe Biden and invades Ukraine. So I'll take President Trump's record on the foreign stage over Joe Biden's record any day of the week. It was President Trump that debilitated and destroyed ISIS. And it was President Trump who brought forward the Abraham Accords that actually brought the promise of peace and stability to the Middle East. So, yeah, I'll take President Trump's foreign policy any day of the week, and the Ukrainians probably would too, the Israelis would too, and so would the Taiwanese. This is a Democratic Party made up of radical extremists, leftists, and the Republican Party has also shifted. And in that, there was a comment about union jobs. It's pretty clear that where the Democrats stand on union jobs when literally day number 1 of the Biden administration, right out of the gate, he cancels the Keystone XL pipeline. Let's talk about what we've done in Congress so far. It's hard to prove a negative, but in some ways we can talk about the rush to the Green New Deal and us preventing a rush to the Green New Deal. See, if the Democrats were in power right now, we'd be all in on the disastrous policies of the Green New Deal, which does nothing but benefit China.
Boy, that's a lot to try to wrap my head around listening to the gentleman from Pennsylvania. So this is not just kind of reruns week in terms of legislation, it's reruns week in terms of talking points. The previous president, Mr. Trump, who my Republican friends are so enamored with, let me just remind you of some of what he was all about. Called President Xi brilliant. He said he got love letters from Kim Jong-un of North Korea. And then he said we fell in love. Like, who says that? Says President Orban is one of the strongest leaders in the country. Can't say enough things nice about Vladimir Putin. While he was president, Vladimir Putin was planning his invasion of Ukraine. And the other day, Trump says, you know what, if NATO doesn't do what I want, then I don't care whether or not Putin invades them. Like, who says that? Biden has united the world against Putin's aggression in Ukraine. And rather than helping Ukraine stand up to Vladimir Putin, my friends on the other side of the aisle are basically giving him a gift. They're denying essential aid to help the Ukrainian people repel a violent and vicious attack by Vladimir Putin. What is wrong with this place, Mr. Speaker, that this is where we are? I mean, I don't know whether my friend from Pennsylvania supports the Ukrainian people in their struggle to prevent Russia from invading them or not. If he does, then he should join with us and say, let's have a vote. I mean, they're literally down to bullets. Putin is ecstatic. Putin is thrilled that the Republican leadership in this Congress is holding up aid that will prevent Ukraine from being able to repel a Russian invasion. Putin is thrilled. I mean, so please, give me a break. Putin is a thug. He's a dictator. He is trying to recreate an old empire. And the idea that people in this chamber are sitting by and saying, okay, do whatever you want. I never ever thought we would ever get to this point, but here we are. And we're debating a bill for the fourth time that is going nowhere, and my friends are pretending like it's some big deal. It's a nothing burger, and yet we can't bring legislation to the floor to help the Ukrainian people. I reserve my time.
The decision by the Biden administration to halt the export of American LNG will only further cripple our economy by killing good-paying jobs, driving energy costs even higher for hardworking families, and inflicting more pain on American business. We cannot cut off LNG exports, regulate natural gas out of existence, and lock away America's natural resources without inflicting enormous long-term pain on American families and communities. It's absolutely disgusting that President Biden has chosen to appease the woke mob that runs his party instead of doing what's right for our nation. The American people are sick and tired of the Biden's America Last policies. We must end the Biden administration's all-out war on American energy. The future of our economy depends on it. And for that reason, I strongly support this legislation and the rule before us today, and I urge its adoption. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Mr. Speaker, what the American people are sick of is all of this. I mean, the disingenuousness of what is being said here, it takes my breath away. I mean, my gentleman talks about the border, and then there's a bipartisan border deal negotiated by conservative Republicans, and because Donald Trump says we'd rather have an election issue than actually do anything, the Speaker decides to pull it. You know, the same with our allies. The idea is that Vladimir Putin has viciously attacked Ukraine, and my Republican friends are standing by and cheering Putin on. I can't believe we are at the point we are at in this Congress. What the American people are sick of is this do-nothing Republican majority, and can't wait, quite frankly, to replace this current regime, as evidenced by the election last night. And let me ask unanimous consent to insert an article from Newsweek entitled, "Chip Roy Furiously Tears into Fellow Republicans." Mr. Roy took to the floor and said, quote, "One thing, I want my Republican colleagues to give me one thing, one, that I can go campaign on and say we did. One, anybody sitting in the complex, if you want to come down to the floor and come explain to me one material, meaningful, significant thing the Republican majority has done," end quote. Frankly, it seems like my fellow colleague on the Rules Committee and I agree on something. Republican majority has been useless, has done nothing. You know, unless you enjoy lurching from crisis to crisis or peddling sham impeachments.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to support the rule and to address a pressing issue affecting each and every American, our energy security. You see, Mr. Speaker, energy is not a luxury. It is the bedrock of our nation's strength. It heats our homes, it cooks our food, and fuels our travels. And yet our energy independence is threatened as domestic energy producers face unprecedented challenges. The pause on LNG exports permits empowered countries like Russia and Iran and hurts our allies who depend on U.S. energy.
Madam Speaker, you know, my friend from Pennsylvania talked about his good friend, some CEO of some LNG corporation that he's worried about. You know what, I'm more worried about the consumers in this country. Who will see their energy costs rise potentially if this bill were ever to become law. And I want to make two quick points, is that this bill is going nowhere because it's written in such a way that it will not get bipartisan support in the House or in the Senate, and certainly will not make it to the President's desk and will not be signed into law. So for the fourth time, I'll say that this bill is going nowhere, and this is a colossal waste of time. The second thing, the point I want to make, is this Congress is doing nothing, not only on energy, but it is doing nothing on everything that matters to the American people. My Republican friends have spent more time electing a speaker and then replacing a speaker and on useless, baseless impeachments than they have on actually legislating. Again, here's a radical idea. You know, we get elected to Congress, we should work together to try to pass legislation that becomes law, that will improve the quality of life of the people we represent. But that is something that is foreign to my friends on the other side of the aisle. Madam Speaker, you know, it has become a familiar pattern by now. We have a looming government shutdown. We have urgent issues at home that require congressional action. We have pressing national security challenges and wars abroad. And Republicans are wasting time on impeachment stunts, silly censures, and MAGA messaging bills. I mean, look, they have us here debating the same bill for the 4th time. We can pass it 4 times or 400 times. It doesn't matter because it's not written in a way that can become law in divided government. My friends won't admit that on the floor, but we all know it is true. Meanwhile, the Senate is sending us bipartisan bills that Speaker Johnson refuses to bring to the floor. You know, the Speaker doesn't seem to think that his job is to solve problems, but rather he thinks his job is to block bipartisan solutions. We had a bipartisan immigration solution. It was blocked. Well, guess what? My Republican friends now own the issue. You are responsible solely now for what's going on the border. You are responsible for the fentanyl crisis in this country. We had a bipartisan bill that was passed in the Senate to help aid our allies in Ukraine and in Israel. And the Republican leadership is blocking it, can't even get a vote. So you are responsible. My friends on the other side are responsible for basically setting the world afire right now, creating all this insecurity, and potentially giving Vladimir Putin, you know, a free pass to go in and to invade Ukraine. I never thought we would be at this point. The bottom line is this: Democrats want to work together with Republicans to get things done. They seem to be able to do that in the Senate. I never thought I'd ever say anything nice about the Senate, but they are working in a bipartisan way. You know, that's why President Biden had us sit down and negotiate a bipartisan border deal. That's why Democrats work with Republicans in the Senate to come up with a bipartisan deal to address our national security challenges. The Speaker of the House says, and I quote, "The House should work its will," end quote. And then the Republicans refuse to bring bipartisan bills up for a vote on the floor because they're afraid of MAGA, they're afraid of Trump, and they're afraid that these bills will pass. And having a campaign issue seems more important than solving a problem. It didn't work for my friends last night. So that this idea that my friends have about not solving problems, that somehow that's good for their election chances, it didn't seem to pan out last night. And what Republicans need to realize is that they control 1/2 of one branch of government, and only barely. They aren't dictators, at least not yet. They have a 2-seat majority in the House, 2 seats, because the American people voted against extremism last night. This bill that we're talking about here today, you know, the info commercials that are being delivered on the floor, they're going nowhere. The reason why my friends keep losing is they keep following the most extreme members of their conference. People don't want the solutions that Marjorie Taylor Greene brings before the Congress. They don't want a deranged former president who has been indicted more times than he's been elected to be calling the shots here. They want leaders that have vision, not petulant children that have nothing to offer but division. You know, Madam Speaker, my Republican friends lost last night for the same reason I believe you will lose in November. You have nothing to offer, nothing at all but division, chaos, and incompetence. And this is just a continuation of that. What is happening here is we are debating trivial issues passionately, but important ones not at all. There are important issues that we need to deal with and to debate and to legislate on right now that affect the people of this country, that affect people all over the world. And we're doing this, bringing back a bill for the 4th time, a bill that we all know is going nowhere because it has been written so poorly and in such a partisan fashion. If my friends want to be serious about governing, you're going to have to learn to work with us. It is that simple. take yes for an answer and work with us for the good of the American people. And with that, I yield back my time.
The gentleman yields. The members will be reminded to direct their comments to the chair.